If we weren't willing to say, hey, I'm going to spend some cash.
The number one thing they focus on outside of how they're getting to where they want to go is who they are doing it with or who can fill the void in their business.
That's how you have somebody for life that you can call in Arizona or in California or in North Dakota or in Idaho or Missouri of people that we met that are going to be on your bus.
How to balance your social life, your professional life, your family, if you have kids, and like how to tie it all in together and make sure you're all elevating together.
The point of a community, the point of a mastermind is now we have people within our community that like, I want to help. Like I want to do whatever I can to help these people, and they feel it.
You're going to be unhealthy. People see you're unhealthy. And if you're not dedicated to yourself in that aspect, it's harder for a high performer to trust you, to be like, well,
this isn't meant to be robotic. Like I think you can have a healthy balance. And the point of like being in shape is like, you don't need to have 6% body fat.
But needless to say, he gave me the time of the day, and immediately I had something to back it up. And we started to, I asked him about the Ferrari. He had a little sticker on it that had his Instagram handle. And I was like, dude, that's like. Welcome back to the Wealth Juice podcast. As always, it's your boys, Ryan and Corey here with another episode for you. Today, we have an exciting episode. It's going to be Corey and I riffing back and forth and talking about why we spent over $100,000 in the last year on mentorship and coaching. And I think this is super important for us to go through because we've noticed as we've gotten into bigger rooms and around more successful people, the number one thing they focus on outside of how they're getting to where they want to go is who they are doing it with or who can fill the void in their business. And we recently just got back actually last night from Scottsdale, Arizona, where we went out and had a mastermind networking event. We rented out a mansion and had rooms filled with 7 to 9 figure entrepreneurs, as well as rookies, where we had a bunch of different panels, talked about things that were going on in our businesses, how to grow our businesses, pain points, how we were struggling in our personal lives, and kind of like tied them all together. And this was it's just super impactful. The whole weekend was super impactful, and it really changed our lives. Corey and I riffed on this a lot together behind closed doors. And I wanted to bring a podcast episode out because I think it's super important for people to hear like real life, what we're going through and how we're elevating in our game. And hopefully you can take some personal anecdotes and advice from this and kind of implement it in your own life. But the one thing I want to highlight to start out here, and this is going to be like a dump of my thoughts from the weekend, and Corey and I will just go back and forth on this. But the biggest takeaway was that everyone, no matter what level you're at, is going through very similar things. And so what I mean by that is we're all struggling in some form of capacity in our personal lives and balancing our personal lives with entrepreneurship, how to balance your social life, your professional life, your family, if you have kids, and like how to tie it all in together and make sure you're all elevating together versus you outgrowing your friends and your family, which is an interesting thing to think about. But as you get around high performers, there's many different types. And what we found is some people are super successful, right? And but they outgrew their family and their friends. And what I mean is that like at some point, money became more important or success became more important. And they look back and they regret, essentially outpacing things and kind of putting an emphasis more on their personal growth versus their family. And some people were sad. It truly, and I won't mention names and things, but it was just interesting where like we kind of asked people, hey, when is enough enough? And is there a dollar amount where you can feel happy, not complacent, but just like fulfilled in the dollars and being able to have your family at the same time? Or is it impossible? Can you not have it all? And it was so philosophical, the things we get into, but the underlying theme for the weekend, and then I'll let Corey jump in here. The underlying theme for me, the biggest takeaway was relationship capital. And what I mean by that is when we go through this journey, everyone tends to think about the like wealth as a dollar figure, right? Or as many assets as you have. And for me, I've kind of realized as we've gone through this journey, it's the relationships that I have that I value way more than the dollars. Like, for example, I couldn't put a dollar. I know what we spent on the weekend to fly out and stay at the house and things like that, but 10, 20, 30x, like I can't put a dollar amount on how much more valuable I felt it was. I finally felt like I was in the right room in the longest time I've been searching. Not that I felt empty in a way, but I just looked to my left and my right in whether it's a personal life or a professional life. And it just, something felt like it was missing. Right. And I had mentioned to people before, I always felt like I was meant for something more, and I never knew what that was. And it's so hard to find that lane. And you think it's going to happen one way, and it's life is not linear. So many different paths occur, and we found our way there, and we found a new little family. And I think for me, I just now tailor. I'm going to just change my mindset a lot, because you strip away all the money in the room, the relationships that those people brought to me, and their perspective on life and things. It's just going to help me get to the next level so much faster. And I thought it was going to be very business tact the whole time. And we did whiteboarding sessions. Don't get me wrong. I think Corey and I found truly filled each void of our business that we felt we had. We went in there a little, okay, we're starting this coaching program. We're starting to build out our brand a little bit more. And we had a bunch of voids we needed to hit and fill. I now have a connection that can fill each of those voids, which is insane, from one weekend. So a lot of thoughts there. I'll bring Corey in here, but for me, if you can remember this, relationship capital and the impact a relationship can have on you is far more valuable than in any dollar amount, because it brings an extra level of fulfillment, companionship, and accountability.
Having people that you can call in multiple areas in the United States or in the world is an invaluable asset to you. Like, now I have taken away the relationships of people that I met there and created genuine connections. And now I can call people depending upon if we need help with building out our coaching program, or building out automations, or I want to talk to somebody who has skills with relationships. I want to talk to somebody who has skills with being an agent and growing and selling a business. Like, these are all people that I'm thinking of in the back of my head that we've created relationships with. And until we spent the money, and the podcast title is telling you, until we spent $100,000 in a mastermind for creative finance, and a mastermind for content creation, and a mastermind for our coaching business, and a mastermind for growth, until we've done that, we had no idea the world out there that existed, that of people that can help us implement things into our business that they have already went through. You don't have to be a lone wolf. And that's one of the key takeaways, is like, you don't have to go at this alone. And here's one of the major things that I found from being in this experience in person, but also doing online, like masterminding and coaching. When you meet somebody, the number one thing that I did this morning as we got back is I sent emails. And the emails were not just follow-up emails, but when somebody said, here, I need this void in my business filled, and I knew of somebody that I could help them, I immediately took a reminder on the spot. And then when I got back, I set the reminder for today. And the first email that I sent this morning was a gentleman, Jonathan Wick. Shout out to Jonathan. He's the man. He runs a Well and Good, and it is a service, an Airbnb, a short-term rental service, cleaning professional cleaning company that works with property managers to help like streamline their business. So I sent an email to him and my property manager down in Florida because I wanted to make that connection. Boom, instant value. Like, I texted him this morning, what's your email? I want to make sure I connect you with the right people that I said I was going to connect you with. You can go to events, you can talk to people, you can have a great time, and you can not write anything down, and you can not follow up. And then you become a little bit like forgettable, like, oh, that was great, that person was awesome. But if you follow through and you take note of what somebody needs in their business or in their life, doesn't have to be in their business, in their life, and you follow through and you send the email, or you put them on a text chain, and you lead in with value, that's how you have somebody for life that you can call in Arizona or in California or in North Dakota or in Idaho or Missouri, of people that we met that are going to be on your bus and they're going to be on your team. So I think taking a lot of the relationships that we've created online for the past 4 years and putting them in person, it's like we already knew these people, and we give people big hugs like we've known them for years, and we have, but the element of the online and then merging it with the in-person has it's taken not only our business to the next level. I can already see the holes that's being filled, but it's taken our relationships and just wherewithal about like the stages of life to the next level. So we wouldn't have gotten there if we weren't willing to say, hey, I'm going to spend some cash right now, and I'm going to take a chance on building our content or creative finance, all the things I just mentioned. So it's a testament to that.
Yeah. I think another lesson I learned here was people at this next level, if you will, right? You hit the millionaire status, and then there's even another level. It's like how you become a multimillionaire. And Going through this, I realized their quick start, if you will, like the ability to start a project is so much quicker than the standard person going through life. And what they do is they realize they need to go 85% of the way and build the parachute on the way down. They just jump, they take the leap, and they just figure it out. Most people get stuck in analysis paralysis where they continually analyze their life, analyze potential deals, analyze things, and they get in their own head and they're like, you know what, like a year could go by and nothing happens. These people just take immediate action. So kind of piggybacking off of Corey's point, we wrote down a ton of notes. You should have seen us just crushing in our notebooks and in our phones the entire time, making notes down who we needed to connect with. And instead of waiting till we got home, what we did was we wrote down the voids we had in our business. We sought out those people that could fill those voids. And then we immediately, after they spoke on the panel or we had a side conversation with them, we got their phone number and we booked a calendar invite and a call for this week, like immediately. So now instead of waiting and saying, hey, potentially we could weave this into our business, we said, no. Every day this week, we have a specific call with a specific person to further advance our business. And I think if you continue that, one of my mantras from the year was just like action over analysis, like really just like moving forward and trying to do anything. And Corey and I had, as he has left his W-2 job, it's become even more vital for us to bring in more income and really drive this ship forward that we've been kind of building for the last 4 years. And the one thing that has really helped us advance is it's so basic, but it was just taking action and really focusing on the who versus the how. Like we're very good at building out a semi roadmap, and then you often find the people that you talk to can help you refine that roadmap and kind of streamline where you should go. And we, instead of going through, you look online, it's so easy to Google a company, right? And like it has a specific service, but how do you know that's the right person you should be working with? How do you know that service is actually going to be able to fulfill the void you feel you need? You always have some sort of idea in your mind. You're like, okay, this company will definitely be able to help me out. And then you get there and then they're selling you this massive program, or it's just missing 3 pieces out of the 5 that you need. So super interesting where we now are able to go through our vetted friends and say, hey, listen, like this is exactly what I need in my business. Who should I talk to? They make the intro. And then, as you navigate the conversation, then you have someone to help fill the void. And I think one of the interesting things for me was, that initial elevator pitch, right? I'm going to talk to a multimillionaire and I'm just like one or two notches below them. They had a way of making me never feel less than and never feel dumb for asking the question. You know why? Because they went through the exact same thing that I did, and they realized we're high performers, and they realized like other highly successful people or high performers want to be around other high performers because there's a certain energy that you give off, and it just like radiates throughout the room, and you can riff on things and trials and tribulations that you both went through. And so as we went through it, it was like talking to one of your best friends and someone that you could relate to immediately because you've been through certain things together as you've built your business, and only people that have started businesses truly understand it, and entrepreneurs, and like balancing everything out. So I say that to say the initial, fear of going up to someone, I think because we've done the podcast for the last 4 years, I can go talk to a brick wall and just like literally make friends with a wall. I know it sounds very dumb, but like the key here is like we've refined our communication skills over time, and we've been in so many different rooms that, we kind of have to navigate conversations on a daily, weekly basis with this podcast and ask intellectual questions and not come off a certain type of way, not like I just want to take. So this allowed us to jump into this room and honestly flourish. I didn't feel nervous at all, which is the weirdest thing. I thought I was going to, get a little nervous based on the dollar amount people had. We had a couple guys pulling up in Lamborghinis and things. And I'm like, man, like these are things that I've always wanted or set the bar for myself that I could attain. And it was just really cool to just feel like one of the pack. And I think one of the skill sets that I want to mention to you is like that initial conversation you have with someone. You need to refine that elevator pitch that you have when you go speak to someone that is at the next level of you. Like, why would someone want to talk to you, right? That is on a different level. What value can you bring? And so it's super interesting. We did a little like relationship chat, and one really successful gentleman was like, what's the first question people ask you when they say hello to you? And it's funny. I knew it right off the bat because sometimes it annoys me because people don't really want to get to know you. The first thing they ask is, oh, what do you do? And they just immediately will judge you based on if they want
validation for why they should have a conversation with you, basically.
Exactly. Do they want to give you a time or not? And I was like, well, how can I become approachable? And he's like, well, dude, what did you do to me? Like we walked outside, he pulled up in his Ferrari, and I was like, man, this guy's got it going on. And he was dressed to the nine. But the way he immediately gave me the time of day, and we got to like pleasantries, right? And then all of a sudden he just was like, well, what do you do? And I went through my spiel, and I made it sure it was quick, but I mentioned that we have a globally ranked 1% podcast where we interview successful entrepreneurs, business owners, and investors. And I am also a real estate investor. We have 70 plus units across the States, and we've been able to do this all in 4 years. And he immediately was like, damn, like, okay. And he would open the door, and and then I asked him what he does. He's a developer. He has over 100 properties out in Arizona. And it just, needless to say, he gave me the time of the day, and immediately I had something to back it up. And we started to, I asked him about the Ferrari. He had a little sticker on it that had his Instagram handle. And I was like, dude, that's like interesting. I had an idea of why he did this, but I was like, I see the handle on there. I'll have to give you a follow. I was like, but why do you have it on the side of your car? He's like, tax write-off, baby. And like, we immediately started like getting into business from there. And it was just really funny. So certain things that I thought about, now I'm everything I've been curious about in my life about talking to these people, I've had 250 plus episodes or hours, if you will, asking other people questions. So when it's in person, it's so natural. And it's just, my point is to refine your skills. And I think communication and learning body language and how to have conversations with people and be a giver first is going to take you so much further than putting your hand out. If I immediately went to him, I was like, hey, nice to meet you. Love to have you on the podcast. He'd be like, what? Like, who are you, dude? And so funny enough, we navigated the conversation in the back of my head. I'm like, damn, I need to get this guy on the podcast big time. Like he went to Harvard, and he's just, the way he thinks was so different. Pulled him aside, and we had a chat, and he's like, dude, I was like, this was like maybe 30, 40 minutes later. I was like, dude, we'd love to have you on the podcast. I know you have a podcast too. He's like, let's do it. And I was like, okay, cool. What time, like, you want to get out the calendars? He goes, no, let's do it right now. And I was like, right now. Okay. So we had a podcast studio set up in the back. Corey and I literally pulled up the mics, had the podcast on the spot. And we wouldn't have potentially gotten this because of how busy this guy is. And he's always traveling the world. He's just, never really stationary. So for us to knock it out and be prepared and just go, didn't have a bio on the guy and just let it fly. It was awesome. So a little bit of a soapbox there, but just make sure you have that elevator pitch and that first, the first 10 to 30 seconds you have a conversation about someone. Tastefully try to craft your message in a way where you're a giver, but you're also, it's interesting enough for them to want to further the conversation with you.
Yeah, I think that there's also a big difference between, we say networking, but there's a big difference between communities and masterminds and networking events. I don't like networking events. I hate business cards. I don't want to do any of that shit. It's like you go there and it's kind of like take. Like, oh, how many people can I talk to and how many business cards can I hand out that get thrown in the trash anyway? The point of a community, the point of a mastermind is now we have people within our community that like, I want to help. Like, I want to do whatever I can to help these people, and they feel it. And the reason is because they've trusted us. And now that they trust us, they're in our circle. And like, anytime I think of somebody who does something, I associate them together. So only by putting your message out there and being willing to quite frankly, spend some money to get involved with people that you want to be like, that's the way that you skip steps. A couple other takeaways is that we learned leaders are readers. I have to personally work on that. Like, I'm more of a leaders are audiobook guys, right? I'm trying to learn how to read, right? Not like Floyd Mayweather, but like, my attention span is brutal. And then the other thing that I already knew that has driven me like so far is that high performing individuals prioritize health and wellness, and like making sure their brain and their body are in sync. I would say 95% of the people there were in like amazing shape. Not and everyone has their preference, right? Like, you can do it without that. But for me, when somebody came up to me and was like, hey, what's like one takeaway you would do for time blocking? And I said to them, it was a rookie, and she was so nice. And I said, you know what the first thing I do every Sunday is? I block out when I'm going to the gym that week before anything else. When am I going to the gym? When am I working out? And sometimes they get moved around, right? Our schedule is like, they move it. But that was my biggest advice to her. And she was like, wow, that's interesting. I was like, and then I time block from there. Because if I'm not sharp up here, like, it stems from my body. And so I prioritize that. I always have, even before I was considering myself like emerging wealthy, right? But it was very a commonplace for a lot of these other people that were there. And then to double down on that is like your positive affirmations about who you say you are and what you say you do, and actually doing those things. And I was kind of touched because there was a theme where people were talking about keeping your promises. And like, I have that tattooed on my body, and it like came up at the event because it builds self-confidence. Like, doing the things you say you're going to do in the dark that come to light, like keeping those promises to yourself. And it was such a theme with people that were like, you could be significantly above average if you just do that one thing. Like if you say, hey, yo, I'm going to shoot you an email, and you actually send the email, like that is, for whatever reason, the competition has gotten pretty low, and that's like a win, right? So, yeah.
I have one. You made this immediately jump in my head. It's so interesting, but if you can't or you don't invest in you, how can you expect someone else to invest in you? And I think this goes back to relationships in general. Like, for example, your spouse. Like, if you can't love yourself, how are you going to love your spouse? How are you going to love your kid? If you don't protect yourself and defend your time, how are you going to defend the time of your wife, spouse, or your kid, right? And or your network, right? And so interesting here. For example, like if you can't spend $1,000 on your personal development, how the heck are you going to charge someone 10 grand to be in a room with you? You know what I mean? Like the value and the worth that you put into yourself, it just flourishes and it spreads outward. So it's just an interesting thought. We went through this year, and a lot of people kind of mentioned to keep your promises is like the value that you put on yourself is the value that other people are going to see in you. And I really want people to understand that the person that puts no time, energy, and attention into that, let's bring it back to like working out. You're going to be unhealthy. People see you're unhealthy. And if you're not dedicated to yourself in that aspect, it's harder for a high performer to trust you, to be like, well, they're not thinking about themselves in this lane. And a lot of people that are high performers, they're thinking about longevity, not only with their business, but their life. And to be able to have a long-standing business, long-standing relationships, you have to be around. So it goes back to health and dialing in on yourself. And, it's easier said than done. You can get wrapped up in the race of things and focus on business. But to be able to maintain both, as you mentioned, we found that a lot of these high performers, they really focused and dialed in on their health, and not just their physical health, but their mental health. A lot of them had, I say therapists, but people they talk to, right? They all have business coaches. They all have personal coaches. They all have life coaches. Just so interesting. And the amount of dollars they invest in themselves and their health on a yearly basis. We talked about people that get yearly scans of their entire body, people that do genealogical testing, blood work, just to fine tune where they're at. And I know it sounds crazy. You're like, oh, must have to have $1 million to be able to spend stuff on that. But it's really not the case. If you dial in and you do the research, there are things out there. I'm personally going through a journey myself, like biohacking, if you will, a little bit. And it's just making me feel so much more clear-headed. I think another interesting takeaway for me, and I'm not trying to be like the no fun guy here, because some people, this isn't for everybody, right? Don't get me wrong. Some people listen to this be like, dude, you guys are robots. Shut the fuck up. But it's not the
No,
case.
I'll give my take on that too, because go ahead. I know what you're going to say.
The last thing, yeah, you do know exactly what I'm saying, but I found that 90% of people in there did not drink alcohol, or they did at one point and they gave it up as they went through their business. And here's a couple thoughts in here. I don't think you have to give it up completely at all. I have given it up for the last 5 months ish. I've never felt better in my entire life. And I mean that by like, I never drank before high school, got into college, dabbled a little bit. And then it just became a thing where, anytime it was social, I would have a beer in my hand. If I didn't want to have a conversation with someone that I was just like, I just really don't want to talk to this person, it's so much easier and comfortable to just grab a beer and power through the conversation. Right. So as I got, gone through this health journey and things like that, I was like, I'm taking a step back from alcohol. Never felt better. And in going through it, when I say never felt better, it's easier for me to commit to a workout and do that every day. But also brain fog has gone away, which is such an interesting concept, because there's, those days you just kind of feel sluggish and you're like, I could do that. I don't have a big list. You maybe do 2 things. I can do 10 things on the list now because my brain is laser focused and I can just move to the next topic. It takes a long time to get certain toxins and things out of your system, but it's just so interesting where now I've shifted as I've grown in this journey. Maybe I think once you hit your 30s, a lot of people put a little bit more emphasis on health because you start feeling things more. But I also have a child, and I'm not waking up feeling hungover. I'm not doing it. I refuse. I know there's random days she'll wake up at 5 a.m. It could be a 4 a.m. It could be a nice 7 a.m. But I don't want to ruin my day or lose my day. And so there's been a lot of factors that have attributed to that, but I'm on this journey. I think a lot of people hear 75 Hard by Andy Frisella, which is, you don't drink for 75 days, you work out twice a day, you read for at least 10 minutes, I believe. And there's probably some more factors. I know Corey did this, but
yeah, you drink a gallon of water, and I think there's another one, but take a progress photo every day. Yeah.
There you go. So this is like I think the most glamorized and popularized version of people like taking the leap into no drinking. And then I've seen, this is very interesting. I've talked to someone out there about this, but there's like three main brewers in the United States. And I think the third largest right now is called Athletic, and that's a non-alcoholic beer. And I thought it was the craziest thing. So today Americans are spending a lot less time drinking, which is interesting. It's in the last couple of years that it's evolved, and just prioritizing their health. And there's so much like a social stigma to it as well. Like it's so awkward sometimes when you go to grab a drink, like go to a bar and people are like, oh, you're not drinking. And for a guy that has done it for, the last 10 plus years, right? Like with your friends and family situations, like, nah, I'm taking a break. And they're like, well, is everything okay? It's like, yeah, dude, like, don't worry about me. I don't need to drink to hang with you. I still got the energy. I'm still going to talk to you. I'm not going to go hide in the corner, sit on my phone. And so I've learned this from a few different relationships. And I say it was just such an interesting takeaway because I didn't know how it was going to be. We're at this big mansion, massive pool. And I'm telling you, there was beer and wine at night with cigars. A lot of people just didn't drink. They had waters. We had a lot of sponsors there. So like their kombucha drinks and things, and everybody's still jacked up doing their thing and having great conversations. So it's not like it took away from the event. It was just so interesting to learn the perspective and see all these guys that just didn't really care.
Yeah. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't take this with like, too much emphasis in terms of like, we're telling you not to drink. Like that's not the case. We're just giving you some perspective of what high level individuals have, what we've seen. My take on this is I probably take 5 or 6 months off drinking every year. Not consecutively, but I'll just be like, oh, I'm not going to drink in January. I'm not going to drink in March. I'm not going to drink in April. Like I'll just do that. I enjoy drinking in the summer on a boat. Like that's not something I'm going to give up. And like on a wedding, I enjoy the social lubricant and also like the camaraderie and the positive effects that come from it. So that's just my perspective on it. But I can tell you that I've drank a lot less than I used to. And I think that I've noticed that the Saturdays where I wake up, I go to the gym, I play golf, I go out to dinner, like I get to bed at whatever, even if it's like late, I get up the next day and I work out. Like I feel fueled, and my next week is just like, boom, I'm rocking and rolling. Now, again, this isn't meant to be robotic. Like I think you can have a healthy balance. And the point of like being in shape is like, you don't need to have 6% body fat, people. Like the point that I think that I know that you're trying to make and that I see is that like when you see somebody that's in shape or cares about themselves, the first thing I think of, that person's disciplined. They give a shit. They've probably been through some things in order to keep their body in that like that shape. Like they have kept the promises to themselves, and hence that they would probably be able to keep them to me if we went into business. And that is the thing, because I've talked to too many people who, are like, maybe they're overweight and out of shape and they can't keep the promises to themselves and they don't like really love themselves, and they could be amazing people. Right. But it's just a notch of something that's like, if you do prioritize these things, I think that you're better off for yourself, your family, and your future. So that was another key takeaway there.
No, I think that was key to mention, because I was not advocating to never drink again. And right, I liked how you said social lubricant, dude. Nice. That's a highlight from the show.
Yeah, it's like I mean, think about how many times you've been at a bachelor party or you're meeting people, and it's like, it kind of warms this. I don't want to make it seem like it's all negative, but the after effects are. I mean, they're really like, especially mentally, when you're building a business, you don't want to be foggy all the time. So I totally agree.
It takes down the barrier, as soon as you walk into a room, it's like very easy. And like, there's a certain energy that people give off too, right? I think that's one thing we talked about this weekend too, is like there's the individual mind, but then there's like the group mind, if you will. I forget what someone called it, but basically like when everyone's thinking together and they're talking, there's this energy that's radiated off that. I do feel that a lot. Like, it's so interesting. There's two different types, but when you go to a bar and everybody's buzzing, you have a couple of drinks, like it's so easy to go talk to someone, right? Cause you're all feeling the vibes. We had that same thing without the alcohol. It was the weirdest thing, because we were all so locked in and ready to like better ourselves, better our business. And like with the palms up mentality of like, no one's judging you. It's a safe space. Say whatever the hell you want. And once one person opened up, it was so crazy to see everyone else open up. We had a gentleman on the show. I don't want to spoil it because it's coming up here, but he started crying like on air with us. And I was like, dude, this like, it validated the questions that we ask. And I made me feel even better about our craft and how we've mastered it. But also the fact that we could meet this man in the first 15 minutes, we were sharing our life stories with each other, breaking down the barriers and just getting to the real core like problems that people are dealing with and how we can better each other. It was just really, really interesting. And I loved it. I want to bring another parallel back here as we kind of like wrap up the episode, and we'll go through, you know, kind of like bulleted, like why you should start investing more in yourself and in mastermind groups, because we're just huge advocates of it. But I read this book. Corey and I were seeking out something bigger, right? And I started doing some research about masterminds, mentorship groups. And this was early on in our journey. And I came across a group called Go Abundance. And at the time, you needed to join the group. One of the requirements was you needed a minimum of $1 million in net worth. Over time, they've recently upped that to 2 million. So it's very interesting. Like, you need to be a high performing individual to be in this room and have seen success. We found a lot of it truly, like over time, is 50+ year old white guys. So I'm not just boring,
by the way.
I would say it's not something that's like steering us away now completely, but I do like having a mixed bag of people and like a melting pot. It gives you more life experiences and things to talk about. And so that's just a side point. But as I went through this journey researching it, because I knew we were going to invest in a certain dollar amount at some point into groups like this, I came across a book called Tribe of Millionaires. And I think David Osborne is the gentleman's name that wrote it. And the main story or parable is, you know, a gentleman that loses his dad. He passed away, and this kid, as he's building his business, is struggling immensely, and he keeps coming down to like the last dollar. And he's like really introspective and like thinking about his life at this point. He's like, I don't want to shut down the doors of my business because so many people rely on me. And he's going through this internal battle back and forth. And he gets a card in the mail, like from this group. It was called TOB, and he didn't know what it was. And it basically was like, you know, I'll see you at the funeral. And these guys like in black suits showed up at the funeral for his dad, and like gave him a card to meet him at a certain place at a certain time. And it basically walked him through the journey of his dad outside of the personal life. His family didn't know about it. He had this whole tribe of millionaires or networking group that he would go to be successful in business and ask, you know, people for feedback and just become a better person. And the son had no idea. And this group basically pulled him in, you know, as his dad passed away, and it's like, hey, listen, this is something you need. This is, your dad actually is leaving you his entire inheritance. However, you need to follow the steps to become one of us and earn your spot to be in. And I just thought it was amazing. And as you go through the book, there's a story about a gentleman named, they don't tell the name, but it's the story of Diego Corzo, one of our really good friends, who is a big player in the real estate space. He's a realtor in Austin, Texas, does some time in Puerto Rico, has a lot of units, but we've become really good friends with him. We've had him on the podcast 3 or 4 times now. We've got to know him, and it was just so interesting. Like we met Diego for the first time this weekend at the immersion event that we were at. And to be able to see him in person, give him a hug after, you know, talking to him for so many hours, and then realizing my journey had come full circle from wanting to be around high performers and these people that I said I wanted to, and finally bucking up, putting the dollars in over time, and reading the book and meeting the person that was showcased in the book was just one of the most full circle, incredible experiences I've ever had. And I was like, wow, man, like I'm now in the rooms with the people that I aspired to be like, and I figured it out. And I always thought it would happen maybe a different way. It's weird how your wires cross and how you end up in that one place. But I wanted to mention that, where I read a book 4 years ago about, you know, the importance of masterminding and getting into rooms with higher people. And I was always told, once you do this, you'll get pulled up to their level. And, you know, we had checks in throughout the last couple of years, met on Zoom, but meeting in person really took things to another level. And we already had established like so much in common. So it was like talking to Corey or talking to someone that I've known forever. And he gave us so much help within our business and is helping us fill so many voids because he runs a similar program. It was just the coolest thing to then him offer us a business opportunity, right? And it's just things that would have never probably happened had we not finally met him in person. And one of the coolest things ever was, you know, Corey and I went to sleep. We wake up the second day and I'm walking out, you know, I'm walking right to the pool, and I see this guy sitting with his legs crossed on his laptop, just typing away, and then phone rings, and I'm like, dude, is that Diego? And I kind of forgot he was going to be there. And he points at me, he's like, Ryan. And I was like, Diego. And we just embraced, had this huge hug. It was the coolest thing. So that was my like full circle moment. I want to advocate for you guys reading the book Tribe of Millionaires, because I think it parlays perfectly into this conversation about why you should join a mastermind group, how you can potentially get involved, but big bullet points and like pillars of like why I think masterminding is so important. accelerated growth. When you get in these rooms, you are going to absolutely move to the next level. And I think it'll take you out of a place of trying to find your way and provide clarity around as long as you surround yourself with others that doing the things that you specifically want to do. So make sure you go out, research, and find the people that are in the right program. Next is the level of accountability. Getting into these rooms, and if you don't take action, it's a waste of time, it's a waste of money. And you almost, outside of making promises to yourself, now these people that have given you all of this feedback and information on your business, if you don't go take action on this, they're going to look at you a type of way, right? It's now like it's a different level of accountability where I now feel like I have to make good on the things that I said I was going to do and the help that I said I needed. If I was given help and I'm not taking any action on it, it's just a waste of time. So obviously network expansion is the next one. And it's like really broadening your horizons. Now we have a massive network out in Arizona where I feel like I could immediately start investing in real estate there. And I think overall, it gave me a confidence boost. You can probably hear it. This whole conversation, I've been able to just ramble and riff off of my thoughts because I'm so confident. I told Corey this. I'm so confident after this weekend, and because it validated everything we've done the last couple of years. We put out content for free. We shared our journey. We've continued to invest in real estate. We've dealt with so many punches in the face, left, right, up and down, and we've just stayed the course. And we've stayed committed to each other, stayed committed to the craft and the podcast and getting that better, getting social better, getting our business better. And then now we're making ourselves better. And I think that's the culmination of it's like, wow, that was like potentially the missing link when we focus on ourselves and personalized development and business development. It's just so amazing and interesting how fast 4 years seems like a long time, I know, but like, I really feel like we're on this momentum wave right now. And I feel like nothing can stop us if we just keep attacking it with, urgency and thinking about that 85%, just get 85% of the way there and build your parachute on the way down.
Yeah. I love that, dude. I'm glad you're on that train because I've been on it now, except I'm about to hit the ground. So thank you for saving me, building that parachute all the way down. Because I just jump. That's like part of my personality. I think that's why we're good partners. But all of these, what this all comes down to is that, and we'll leave you kind of with this is, the book Who Not How, and we've talked about it many times, but I really want to like bring it into the forefront is that you can do all of these things that you say you're going to do by yourself, but at the end of the day, if you don't have a tribe or people that you surround yourself with that you enjoy hanging out with, or that you can share your experiences with, why do it in the first place? It's like, why be a multimillionaire or a billionaire if you're going to be alone? And that's, I think, there is a lonely part of entrepreneurship, but you can create a tribe, you can create a mastermind, you can join them to be with people who think like you. A lot of people, and we met a lot of people, some young bucks out there who are in their early 20s who feel different. And they're like, I don't like school. Like, I don't have many friends. Like, I feel like I just want to work on my building a business, or I want to work on things outside. And the school system doesn't teach you like that, how to do that. And you think you're alone. And I think a lot of this stems into the mental health. You think that there's nobody that thinks like you. And there are people that think like you. You just have to find them. And you have to be willing to say, I'm going to invest in myself versus trying to save up that money. Like, I need hoard all this cash for my next investment. The investment in yourself is going to go so much further. And people say it all the time, but I'm telling you, we're living proof. So, this conversation can go, Ryan and I talk every single day. We talk for hours. I wanted to share our personal feedback and experiences from being in person with people that we strive to be like. The next text I send after this is a voice memo to somebody who is going to be potentially a personal mentor to me because we really like connected. We were on the same wavelength, and that's invaluable. You can't put a dollar figure on somebody that sees something in you. He's 47, I'm 33, that he sees something in me that, he once was. And that is powerful. So we gave you the benefits. We gave you the reasons why. It's not just for our coaching program, but it's to get around people that you aspire to be like. And that is why we spent $100,000 on coaching in the past couple of years.
100%. And I hope that a lot of this resonated with you. And I know there will be people that have been searching for a tribe, a community, a mastermind, and you're on the edge and you're like, I'm thinking about it. I just don't know. I'm telling you, the dollars you spend will easily 10x themselves very quickly. So, as you guys do know, or some of you do, some of you don't, Corey and I recently started a mentorship and a coaching program, and it's eventually going to evolve into a mastermind, similar to the event that we mentioned we went to this last weekend. So if you're interested in becoming part of the community, or you'd like to chat further, and maybe you're struggling with certain things and you just need some guys to lean on and kind of navigate you through the journey, drop us a DM on Instagram. We'd be happy to chat, have an hour conversation with you if you'd like to just riff on some things, see if we're a right fit to work together, or at least help you just navigate the seas right now. I know it's difficult out there, who to trust and who you want to surround yourself with. So if anything resonated that we mentioned, and you like our energy and our vibe, and it's something you could see yourself doing, let us know. We vet out people that we work with. It's not for everybody. So I just want to know, I think that's the key to this whole thing, is getting the right people in the right rooms. And you have to have morals, values, you're an ethically strong person. And so we keep our circle tight and very close, and it's important to us, and we defend that. And that's probably the most important thing. Like Corey, as I mentioned to Corey, like we defend our relationship above everything else, and business doesn't matter outside of he and I. As long as we're good, then the business will be good. So, and that goes with personal relationships as well. Like you have to keep the main thing, and it takes work. So say that to say, if you're interested, drop us a DM, but we wanted to give you the real reason why we spent $100,000+ in masterminding, networking, and bettering ourselves in the last year. And I hope you found it valuable.
Yep. And for people that if just listen to the pod, maybe they don't follow us on Instagram, to drop us a DM. That's at Wealth Juice Official. So we look forward to hearing from you. And last thing I'll say, the ending statement, I read an Instagram post the other day that said, like, what's better, the journey or the destination? And the response was the company. So just remember that none of this shit matters unless you surround yourself with people that you enjoy spending time with. And thank you for tuning in.
The company that you hold, not the company you work for, just to let you know, the company you hold, the company you keep, the people around you, those are what you need to hold nearest and dearest to your heart. So with that, we'll see you next week.
Thanks for tuning in this week to the Wealth Juice Podcast. If you liked what you heard, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, subscribe, and share with friends. The more ratings we get, the more ears we'll get on our show, and in turn, we'll be able to provide you with more high-quality guests. You can also find us on Instagram and YouTube at Wealth Juice Official, where we post daily tips, tricks, and document our own journey towards financial freedom.